Well, another big week in the world of Canadian soccer for both the men's and women's national teams. So that means, of course, we have to bring in Oliver Platt. And right off the top, Ollie, I want to dispel the nasty rumors. You are not at AT&T Stadium because you're signing as a middle linebacker for the Cowboys, but you are there ahead of the Gold Cup quarterfinal. What's it been like to be at such an unbelievable venue, and just first impressions on your time there so far?
Yeah, definitely would not be as a middle linebacker, maybe a place kicker or something like that. Yeah, it's an incredible stadium. I haven't had the chance to go inside yet. Obviously, won't until closer to the game, but it's enormous. Like I've been to a few big stadiums around the world, and this one, I think, just in terms of its physical size, is the biggest I've ever seen. It's very, very hot here, and it's only going to get hotter, so that's going to play a part on Sunday as well, and is maybe something that Costa Rica will be a bit more used to than Canada. And then the pitch is another interesting one because it's obviously turf here for the Dallas Cowboys, but they actually lay down like a temporary grass pitch when soccer games are played here. So it will be natural grass, but I think it is still a bit harsher on the players' legs just because it's literally grass laid on top of concrete, as I understand it. So there's a few factors that could play in on Sunday, but yeah, it's an amazing venue, and it's going to be pretty cool to see the Canadian national team play in a place like that.
Well, we weren't sure if it was going to be Jamaica or Costa Rica. Now that we've determined who the opponent is going to be, Ollie, how do you think this favors or perhaps hinders Canada? Should they be considered the favorites heading into this quarterfinal tie?
I don't think so, given the player absences that they've got. Akinola, we'll get onto those in a minute. Akinola is obviously a disappointing one, but really I think it's Kyle Larin is, one of the top strikers at this tournament and Canada's top player, along with maybe Eustachio, in terms of pedigree and profile, and they're going to miss him. There's no doubt about that. So big shoes to fill there. And then I think when you look at the Costa Rican side, it is a team that, we've been saying for 2 or 3 years now is in a bit of transition. Right. There's quite a lot of older players who were there for the 2014 World Cup, which obviously they did so well at. Those guys aren't getting any younger, but you also can't overlook the experience of, Ruiz, Borges, Joel Campbell's still only 29, but has over 100 caps. And you compare the two national teams on experience level, and Costa Rica's at nearly 1,000 caps combined. Canada's at like 300 or something. So I think you have to make Costa Rica favorites just based on their experience. They've been there and done it. They have a lot of proven players. But I think in the Jamaica game, it was a bit like the Canada-US game. USA won the group with the perfect records, but Canada were the better team for long periods of that game, gave them some problems. I thought the same thing about Jamaica playing Costa Rica. They gave them a lot of problems as well, and came out on the wrong side of the result, obviously. So I think you can get at them, particularly defensively. Canada will feel like with Buchanan and Hoylett, they can cause some problems.
Well, let's dive a little bit deeper into the absences of Kyle and Ayo. What is the latest that you're hearing from the camp? Obviously, they're going to be done for the tournament. So in terms of how much they're going to be missed and when, if at all, we may hear about replacements.
Yeah, we're still waiting to hear on replacements. I think the most likely one seems to be Christian Gutierrez flying in. He's technically already in the squads, but they left him in Vancouver to play for the Whitecaps because they just didn't think he would get that many minutes at this tournament. So he could come in, and that would give you some cover at left back, which then allows you to push Tyler Pasha into more of an attacking position further forward. So that's one possibility. It doesn't sound like they're going to bring in anyone else from the provisional list. Someone like Tesha Akindele I thought would have made sense, but I think it's just quite complicated right now. The team is effectively still in a bubble. There's a lot of COVID protocols to go through. You don't know, again, how many minutes these guys are going to come in and actually get, and so it's a lot to ask of them to take away from their clubs. So we'll see. I could be wrong, but I wouldn't expect much there. In terms of the missing players, Akinola is a disappointing one, I think, for the individual player, a really disappointing one for the individual player, who he had a tough time in preseason with a medical issue. He's just getting going, just getting into form with Toronto FC, makes his debut for Canada. Now he's out for the rest of the season, so that's a really cruel one. I think more immediately at this tournament is Kyle Larin is the one that you're going to feel, right? As I mentioned earlier, he's been one of the top players at this tournament. Don't think it'll be longer than a few weeks. He's out with a minor muscle tear, so he should be okay for September. But he is a guy up front along with Hoylett in this Canadian roster, so they're going to win for sure.
Yeah, and obviously the priority, Gold Cup is great, priority remains the fall, so we'll cross our fingers that he's back to full form.
Yes. Yeah.
Talking about the likes of Pasher, who will be able to play in a different position or take on more responsibility. The easy answer to this question, Ollie, is everyone, but who in particular, maybe the likes of Cavallini, really need to step up without those two?
Yeah, Cavallini for sure. I think he's had a mixed tournament. Yeah, he's been good at the Gold Cup traditionally, and particularly you think back to 2017, I think it was when Alphonso Davies kind of broke onto the scene, and he had a really good partnership with Lucas Cavallini at that tournament. So he's someone who has done it before, and I think can give more than he's shown so far. I do wonder, looking at the US game, looking at the players that are unavailable now, John Herdman really designs the kind of 3-4-3 or 3-5-2 formation, one, to get Davies in what looks like his best position for Canada, which is wing back, and two, to accommodate two strikers because we want to get Kyle Larin and Jonathan David on the pitch at the same time. Now, none of those guys are there anymore. So does that still apply, right? And do you start to think about changing the system? I think maybe if you had someone like Tejon Buchanan higher up the field, a bit closer to Cavallini, providing a bit more pace in behind, so Cavallini can, you can get the most out of the hold-up play he brings. That might make more sense at this stage to change it up from kind of plan A a little bit, just based on the players who are available. But Cavallini for sure, Junior Hoylett's another one, and then I would also say Theo Corbin, who he's a young player who has difference-making ability and potential.
Absolutely.
Haven't really seen a ton of him over the past month or two. But if he can, make an impact in this knockout stage, that will be much needed and help a lot.
Obviously, we'll keep an eye on the latest developments that come out of the camp before their matchup on Sunday. Of course, that is at 7 p.m. Eastern time. All the coverage in the lead-up, post-game, and the actual event itself, of course, is here on OneSoccer. But Ollie, it's not just the men who are in a massive competition right now. The women's national team just kicked off their Olympic campaign today against Japan. 1-1 draw. What did you make of their performance, and how does this draw affect where we might see this group project throughout the rest of the way in group play?
I think it was an okay performance. I wouldn't go better than that. I think maybe we'd be talking about it in more positive terms had obviously they held out. So I don't want to dismiss, what came before the equaliser, but it feels like a bit of a missed opportunity on the one hand, because I think it was a really big game. If you can put 3 points on the board there, you look at the Chile game, and that's one Canada should win, although it won't be easy. Then all of a sudden you've got 6 points on the board, just sitting pretty through to the next rounds. Takes a bit of pressure off the Great Britain game. You could potentially rotate the squad a little bit, and so things get a lot easier for you. Now it's going to be a bit tighter. There is more pressure on that Chile game now. If it presents them a problem like Argentina did at the She Believes Cup right until the last minute, then it's something that could be a problem for Canada, right? So it feels like a missed opportunity on the one hand, but then I think we have to keep it in perspective and remember that, a couple of years ago, after the Women's World Cup and around the Women's World Cup, we had no real conviction that Canada could go into games against the likes of Japan anymore and get a result, right? And they were a few minutes away from winning this one and winning it without really having been troubled too much. So the late equalizer is disappointing, but the performance, I would say, wasn't really at the standard seen for under Bev Priestman at their best under Bev Priestman, but it was still a lot better than we've been used to over the past couple of years, and a sign again that Canada is progressing and is now expecting to win these games rather than just trying to cling on and get some kind of result.
I have to give a tip of the cap to you, Ollie, because obviously with you in the central time zone right now, it's an even earlier kickoff than what it normally would have been had you been at home in Toronto. But perhaps you were a little bit sluggish watching the game, and that's a word I would use to describe the attack that still looks like it's missing something. So do you agree with me, first of all, Ollie, that assessment is fair? And what do you think needs to change to breathe some life into a side that just put up 3 in a friendly before the Olympics started?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, the fire alarm in the hotel went off at 5 a.m. this morning, so I got a wake-up call of sorts. Yeah, for the Canadian game. But yeah, I agree with you. It's obviously been a bit of an issue for a few months now, and even before Bev Priestman took over. For me, the big thing is there's just not quite the right balance in the attack at the minute. I think there's a lot of players who like to play between the lines and in front of the defense. When you think of Jessie Fleming, Janine Becky, Christy Christine Sinclair, obviously. They're players who like to come to the ball rather than letting the ball come to them and play in those tight spaces in front of the defense. And there's not enough players who like to stretch the field, who like to get behind the defense and kind of open things up for other players to use that space, right? I think Nichelle Prince was the only one who was really offering that kind of threat on a regular basis this morning. So that's the kind of balance they need to find. I think they need to find ways to get Ashley Lawrence further forward and joining into the attack more if she is going to play at right back. Just a little bit of a better balance to strike, I think, in terms of what kind of attacking players you're putting on the field.
Well, Ollie, finally, before we let you go, we have to talk about an area where this Canadian women's national team is spoiled in terms of players available who can step up and do the job. But heading into the tournament, you had Kaylin Sheridan as your starter, and Steph LeBay gets the start, and she's one of, if not the biggest storyline. The injury, the PK save, and the fact that she even started the game. So with all of that being said, is she now, the starter if she's fit? And what did you make of her ridiculous day today?
Yeah, I think she is. I don't think she plays this morning if Priestman doesn't see it that way, right? So it was a surprise to me because Kaylin Sheridan's really broken through and played very well in the NWSL over the past couple of years. But we know what Steph LeBay can do. It's not a surprise that she's playing. It's more of a surprise that I think Sheridan isn't, just because she's kind of really been billed, I think, as the future number one of this team for a year or so now. So, yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see LeBay in. I'm not going to lie, when she gave the penalty away and was clearly in a lot of pain, I wasn't yelling because it was 6 a.m. or whatever, but I was, fake yelling at my TV, like, get off, take the sub. We've got a very good goalkeeper on the bench. It's a big moment in the game. Don't put yourself through that if you don't need to. But she stuck in there. She decided to go for it and obviously couldn't finish the game, but made a great save on the penalty. So, I was surprised by that one, but I think it's a bit of a win-win, really. I think you've got two good goalkeepers who are more than capable of starting.
Well, and make sure you keep that fake yelling in your back pocket for the press box, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of emotions come Sunday. Thanks, buddy, for your time. We appreciate it. And, of course, everyone, make sure you stay tuned to OneSoccer on social media. Join us on OneSoccer today as well. We'll continue to keep an eye on both the women's and men's national teams in a very busy week. He is Oliver Platt joining us from Arlington, Texas. Thanks, buddy.